Right now, as you watch this, someone is sabotaging your future. They're not sneaking into your home or hacking your accounts. They're doing something far more devastating. They're watching you destroy yourself, one post at a time, one boast at a time, one desperate cry for validation at a time. And the worst part, you're helping them do it. You think you're building a brand. You think you're inspiring others. You think you're showing strength. But every time you announce your next move, every time you flash your wins, every time you bare your soul for likes, you're handing your enemies the blueprint to your destruction. This isn't just about social media. This is about survival in a world that eats the loud and rewards the lethal. And if you keep watching, I'm going to show you why everything you've been told about success, about visibility, about being authentic, is a lie designed to keep you weak, predictable, and under control. The Predator's Playbook: Why You're Being Hunted. Here's what you don't realize. While you're busy performing for strangers on the internet, someone else is watching. Not admiringly, strategically. They're studying your patterns, your weaknesses, your next moves. They're not commenting, not liking, not engaging. They're calculating. And every piece of information you voluntarily give them is another weapon in their arsenal against you. Niccolò Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Florence, where power was life and death, where a single boast could end your bloodline, where silence meant survival and noise meant a dagger in the dark. He watched princes rise and fall, empires crumble, dynasties end, not because they were weak, but because they couldn't resist showing the world how strong they were. And in every collapse, in every downfall, in every betrayal, he saw the same pattern. The peacock may dazzle, but it's always the first to be hunted. You see, Machiavelli understood something that you've forgotten. Every successful predator operates in silence. The lion doesn't roar before it strikes. It stalks, it waits, it observes. The shark doesn't announce its presence. It glides beneath the surface until it's too late. The storm doesn't send you a warning text. It builds in silence until it destroys everything in its path. But you broadcast your every intention like you're the evening news anchor of your own life. You post your goals before you've taken the first step. You announce your strategies like you're giving a masterclass to your competitors. You reveal your emotions, your relationships, your bank account balance, your deepest insecurities, all in the name of authenticity. But here's what you don't understand. What you call authenticity, every person who's ever held real power would call strategic suicide. You're not being genuine. You're being gullible. You're not being open. You're being obvious. You're not being relatable. You're being readable. And in the game of power, readable means controllable. Every time you share something personal, you give others leverage over you. Every time you reveal your plans, you give your competitors time to prepare countermeasures. Every time you show your weaknesses, you hand people the exact buttons they need to push to make you dance to their tune. This isn't paranoia. This is reality. And the sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you can stop being a victim of it and start being a master of it. The psychology of your own destruction. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Why do you feel this overwhelming need to share everything? Why do you feel compelled to document every moment, every thought, every small victory? Why can't you just succeed in silence? Because deep down you're terrified. Terrified that if people don't see your worth, it doesn't exist. Terrified that if you don't constantly prove your value, you'll be forgotten. Terrified that if you don't perform, you'll become invisible. You've tied your self-worth to external validation, and now you're addicted to the approval of strangers who don't even know your real name. This is the psychology of the weak mind, the mind that needs constant confirmation from others to believe in itself. And every person who's ever held real power, every person who's ever built something that lasts, every person who's ever commanded genuine respect understands this fundamental truth. The moment you need others to validate your strength, you've already lost it. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." Do you understand the weight of those words? They're not just an observation, they're a warning. Appearances invite judgment. Exposure invites attack. Visibility invites vulnerability. When you constantly put yourself on display, you're not demonstrating confidence. You're revealing insecurity. You're not showing strength. You're screaming for attention. You're not inspiring others. You're advertising your desperation for approval. And here's the cruel truth. The world doesn't respect desperation. It exploits it. Think about the loud entrepreneur who can't stop talking about their revolutionary business idea. They post about it. They speak about it at every networking event. They put it in their bio. What happens? Someone with more resources, more connections, more discipline takes that idea and executes it better, faster, smarter. The loud entrepreneur gets to watch their own dream succeed in someone else's hands. Think about the person in your office who dominates every meeting, who has an opinion on everything, who never lets anyone else speak. They think they're showing leadership, but they're actually revealing their insecurity. They need to be heard because they're afraid of being ignored. And slowly, steadily, people stop listening. They stop respecting. They start working around them instead of with them. Now think about the person who speaks last in meetings, who listens more than they talk, who asks questions instead of making statements. When they finally speak, the room goes quiet. When they make a move, others notice. When they're absent, their absence is felt. They don't demand attention. They command it. That's the difference between performing and possessing power. Performance is temporary, attention-seeking, validation-dependent. Power is permanent, attention-commanding, validation-independent. The invisible chains you're wearing. Here's what's really happening to you, and this might be the most important thing you hear today. Every word you speak in public becomes a chain around your neck. Every promise you make becomes a debt you owe. Every position you take becomes a cage that limits your future options. The moment you declare something publicly, you become a prisoner of that declaration. The world expects you to stay consistent with yesterday's version of yourself, even when that version no longer serves you, even when you've outgrown it, even when staying consistent will destroy you. This is why most people never evolve. They're trapped by their own statements. They announced who they were too early, too loudly, too completely. They painted themselves into a corner, and now they have to live in that corner forever, no matter how uncomfortable it becomes. But the truly powerful, they understand that consistency can be a death sentence. They reserve the right to change, to pivot, to evolve without explanation, without apology, without needing anyone's permission. How do they maintain this freedom? Through silence, through restraint, through the discipline to withhold what others desperately need to share. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." He wasn't glorifying betrayal. He was accepting reality. Your past statements become weapons that others use against you. Your public declarations become prison cells that trap you in old versions of yourself. When you announce your goals, you create expectations. When you reveal your strategies, you invite interference. When you share your timeline, you give others the power to judge your progress. When you broadcast your values, you give people a checklist of ways to attack your character. But silence? Silence is freedom. Silence is the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Silence is your right to change course without explaining yourself to people who wouldn't understand anyway. Those who master power, master restraint. They understand that every word not spoken is a door left open. Every secret kept is a trump card saved for the right moment. Every piece of information withheld is a piece of leverage preserved. The fear factor you're completely missing. Let me ask you something that will reveal everything about how power really works. What scares you more? The person who's always talking about how dangerous they are, or the person who never needs to mention it? The one who threatens loudly, or the one whose silence makes your skin crawl? The one who explains their every move, or the one who moves without explanation? The one who seeks your approval, or the one who doesn't seem to need it? We both know the answer. And so does everyone else. We don't fear the known. We fear the unknown. This is the weapon you're throwing away every time you overshare. Every time you explain yourself. Every time you need the world to understand your motivations, your methods, your madness. You're trading mystery for familiarity, and familiarity breeds contempt. Machiavelli knew this truth like he knew his own heartbeat. It is much safer to be feared than loved when one of the two must be lacking. But here's what most people miss. Fear isn't built through threats or displays of force. Real fear, the kind that shapes behavior and commands respect, is built through mystery, through the sense that something powerful is moving just outside of visible range. When people can't predict you, they respect you. When they can't explain you, they fear you. When they can't control you through their understanding of you, they have no choice but to step back and let you operate. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loudest, not the most visible, but the most powerful. Do they announce their every move? Do they explain their decisions to everyone who asks? Do they seek approval for their actions? Or do they operate in a space that others can't quite access, speaking a language that others can't quite understand, playing a game that others can't quite see? The truth is, uncertainty is your greatest asset. When people don't know what you're capable of, they assume you're capable of anything. When they don't know what you're thinking, they assume you're thinking 10 steps ahead. When they don't know what you're planning, they assume your plans are too sophisticated for them to comprehend. But the moment you reveal everything, the moment you become an open book, you become manageable, you become predictable, you become controllable. And controllable people don't hold power. They are power's subjects. The mirror of modern madness. Look around you, really look. We live in an era of voluntary surveillance, where people compete to see who can reveal more about themselves to strangers. We document every meal, every thought, every emotion, every achievement, every failure. We live our lives like we're the stars of our own reality show, and everyone else is the audience. But here's what you don't see. While you're performing, someone else is directing. While you're on stage, someone else is in the control room. While you're dancing for likes and comments and shares, someone else is pulling the strings that make you dance. Social media has turned us all into willing participants in our own manipulation. We give away our data, our patterns, our weaknesses, our desires, and we pay for the privilege. We think we're building connections, but we're building target practice. We think we're creating community, but we're creating vulnerability. Every detail you share gives your enemies ammunition. Every weakness you reveal becomes a button they can push. Every strength you display becomes a challenge they want to overcome. Every plan you announce becomes a strategy they can counter. The modern world has confused noise with power, visibility with influence, performance with results. We've been programmed to believe that if something isn't posted, it didn't happen. That if something isn't shared, it doesn't matter. That if something isn't public, it's not real. But here's what Machiavelli would tell you. The more you show, the more you owe. The moment you start performing for public approval, you become enslaved to that approval. The world begins to expect constant entertainment from you, and when you fail to deliver, and you will fail because no one can maintain peak performance forever, it doesn't forgive. It forgets. It moves on to the next performer, the next distraction, the next source of free entertainment. Meanwhile, the truly powerful are operating in spaces you can't even see. They're making moves you can't predict, building empires you can't imagine, accumulating influence you can't measure. They're not posting about their process. They're focused on their progress. They're not sharing their strategies. They're executing them. They're not seeking validation. They're creating value. The tactical advantage of strategic invisibility. This isn't about hiding. This isn't about being timid or fearful or withdrawn. This is about being strategic. This is about understanding that in the game of power, information is currency, and you've been giving away your fortune for free. Every great strategic mind throughout history has understood this principle. Reveal only what serves your purpose, and nothing more. Everything else is noise, distraction, vulnerability. When you speak before you move, you give your enemies time to prepare. You give your competitors time to counter. You give your obstacles time to strengthen. But when you move before you speak, when you act before you announce, when you execute before you explain, you give them only time to react. And reaction is always weaker than preparation. The master doesn't explain everything because he doesn't need to. His results speak louder than his mouth ever could. He doesn't justify his actions because his outcomes justify themselves. He doesn't seek approval because he's already moved beyond the need for external validation. Think about the most influential people you know personally. Not celebrities, not social media personalities, but people who actually shape outcomes in your world. Are they constantly explaining themselves? Are they always visible? Are they perpetually performing? Or do they appear only when their presence changes everything? The difference is intentionality. The performer acts for the audience. The powerful act for the outcome. The performer needs to be seen to feel valuable. The powerful know their value regardless of who sees it. This is why silence is not just a tactic, it's a worldview. It's the understanding that every interaction is a chess match, every conversation is a negotiation, every revelation is a transaction. And in any transaction, the person who reveals less gains more. When you master this understanding, something incredible happens. People start talking about you instead of to you. They speculate about your moves instead of dismissing them. They prepare for your presence instead of ignoring it. They respect your absence instead of demanding your attention. The ultimate power play, becoming unreadable. Here's the secret that separates the truly powerful from everyone else. They've learned to become unreadable. Not invisible, unreadable. There's a profound difference. Being invisible means you can't be seen. Being unreadable means you can be seen, but not understood, observed but not predicted, noticed but not controlled. The unreadable person is present in the room, but their thoughts remain private. They participate in conversations, but their true intentions remain hidden. They make moves, but their next moves remain mysterious. They're there, but they're not available. They're visible, but they're not vulnerable. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about the necessity of appearing one way while being another. Not deception for its own sake, but strategic presentation. Not lying, but not revealing everything either. Understanding that perception is a tool, not a mirror. You don't owe the world a full version of yourself. You don't owe anyone complete transparency. You don't owe strangers access to your thoughts, your plans, your process, your private moments. What you owe the world is results, and results speak louder than explanations ever could. The strongest forces in nature are invisible. Gravity shapes mountains without making a sound. Time changes everything without announcing its plans. Pressure builds until it becomes unstoppable, but you never see it coming. Electricity can power cities or kill you instantly, but you can't see it, touch it, predict it. This is your template. This is your blueprint. Be like the forces that shape the world, felt everywhere, seen nowhere, stopped by nothing. When you master this principle, you become something more than just another person competing for attention. You become a force that others have to account for, a variable that others have to consider, a presence that others have to respect. Not because you demand it, but because you've earned it through your restraint, your discipline, your strategic invisibility. The catastrophic cost of constant performance. Let me tell you what happens when you become addicted to performance. When you need constant validation. When you can't exist without an audience. You stop being authentic and start being a character. You stop living your life and start managing your image. You stop making decisions based on what's right and start making them based on what looks good. This is the trap of the modern world. We've turned authenticity into a performance. We've made vulnerability into content. We've transformed our most private moments into public spectacles. And in doing so, we've lost the very thing we were trying to prove we had. Genuine power, genuine confidence, genuine self-worth. The person who needs to constantly prove their worth has already admitted it's in question. The person who needs to constantly explain their decisions has already revealed they're not confident in them. The person who needs to constantly seek approval has already demonstrated they don't have it for themselves. Machiavelli understood this psychology of weakness. He saw it in the courts of Renaissance Italy, where princes would fall not because they were overthrown by superior force, but because they were outmaneuvered by superior strategy. They were so busy performing their power that they forgot to actually use it. The performance trap is seductive because it feels like progress. You post about your goals, people like and comment, and it feels like you're moving forward. But you're not. You're just moving sideways, creating the illusion of momentum while actually standing still. Real progress happens in silence. Real growth happens in private. Real power develops in spaces where no one is watching, no one is judging, no one is keeping score. The paradox of modern communication. Here's the paradox that defines our age. The more we communicate, the less we actually say. The more we share, the less we reveal about what truly matters. The more we perform our lives, the less we actually live them. We've created a culture where sharing everything is considered healthy, where privacy is suspicious, where silence is interpreted as guilt or ignorance or irrelevance. But this is backwards. This is the opposite of how power has always worked. Throughout history, the most powerful people have been the most private. The most influential have been the most selective about what they reveal. The most successful have been the most disciplined about managing their own narrative. This isn't because they had something to hide. It's because they understood that mystery is magnetic, that scarcity creates value, that the unknown is more powerful than the known. But we've been programmed to believe the opposite. We've been told that transparency is strength, that sharing is caring, that openness is honesty, and maybe in personal relationships, in intimate friendships, in family bonds. Some of this is true, but in the arena of power, in the game of influence, in the competition for resources and opportunities and respect, these beliefs will destroy you. Because while you're being transparent, someone else is being strategic. While you're sharing everything, someone else is selecting what to reveal and when. While you're being open, someone else is being observant. And observation always defeats exhibition. The weaponization of your honesty, every piece of information you share becomes a weapon that can be used against you. Not might be, will be. Because in a world where attention is currency and controversy is content, your honesty becomes someone else's opportunity. You share your struggles, someone uses them to question your competence. You share your successes, someone uses them to fuel their envy. You share your plans, someone uses them to create obstacles. You share your relationships, someone uses them to create drama. You share your values, someone uses them to attack your character when you inevitably fall short of perfection. This is the weaponization of authenticity. Your openness becomes ammunition for people who don't have your best interests at heart. Your vulnerability becomes their strength. Your honesty becomes their advantage. Machiavelli would see our modern world and shake his head, not because he was against truth, but because he understood how easily truth could be twisted, manipulated, used as a weapon by those who understand power better than those who possess it naturally. The lesson isn't to become dishonest. The lesson is to become selective, to understand that not every truth deserves an audience, not every thought deserves to be shared, not every moment deserves to be documented. The silent revolution. The silent revolution. So what's the alternative? How do you operate in a world that demands constant performance while maintaining your strategic advantage? How do you exist in a culture of oversharing while preserving your power? You start a silent revolution. A revolution not of words but of actions. Not of announcements but of accomplishments. Not of explanations but of execution. You become the person who does instead of the person who talks about doing. You become the person who builds instead of the person who talks about building. You become the person who achieves instead of the person who talks about achieving. This is harder than it sounds because it requires you to find validation from within instead of from others. It requires you to measure your worth by your results instead of by your reception. It requires you to trust your process even when no one else can see it. But here's what happens when you make this shift. You become dangerous. Not dangerous in a harmful way, but dangerous in a powerful way. You become unpredictable, uncontrollable, unmanageable. You become someone who has to be taken seriously because you can't be taken lightly. When people can't read you, they can't manipulate you. When they can't predict you, they can't prepare against you. When they can't control you through their understanding of you, they have to respect you on your terms. The art of strategic silence. Strategic silence isn't about being quiet all the time. It's about being intentional about when you speak, what you say, and to whom you say it. It's about understanding that your words have power, and power should never be wasted. When you do speak, people listen, not because you're loud, but because you're rare. Not because you're dramatic, but because you're deliberate. Not because you're performing, but because you have something worth saying. This is the art that Machiavelli mastered and that you must learn. The art of making your presence felt without making yourself available, of commanding attention without demanding it, of inspiring respect without requiring it. The master of strategic silence moves through the world like water, adaptable, powerful, essential, but never confined to one shape, never trapped in one position, never limited by one perception. The psychology of respect. Here's what most people don't understand about respect. It's not given to those who ask for it. It's not granted to those who demand it. It's not awarded to those who perform for it. Respect is earned by those who don't need it, commanded by those who don't seek it, possessed by those who don't require it. The moment you need respect from others, you've already lost it. The moment you perform for respect, you've already cheapened it. The moment you explain why you deserve respect, you've already proven you don't. Respect is the natural response to encountering someone who is complete within themselves, who doesn't need external validation to know their worth, who operates from a place of internal authority rather than external approval. This is why silent people command more respect than loud people. This is why mysterious people are more intriguing than obvious people. This is why those who withhold are more powerful than those who overshare. When you remove the need for others to validate you, you force them to confront their own need for your validation. When you stop seeking their approval, you make them seek yours. When you stop explaining yourself to them, you make them try to understand you. This is the psychology of power. It flows toward those who don't chase it and away from those who do. The ultimate test. So here's your test. Here's how you know if you're ready to walk this path, to embrace this philosophy, to live this way. Can you succeed without telling anyone? Can you grow without posting about it? Can you achieve without announcing it? Can you become powerful without performing power? Can you resist the urge to share your wins? Can you withhold your strategies? Can you keep your plans private? Can you let your results speak instead of your mouth? This is the test that separates the truly powerful from the perpetually performing, the truly confident from the constantly insecure, the truly strong from the strategically weak. Most people will fail this test because they've become addicted to external validation. They've forgotten how to measure their own worth. They've lost the ability to keep their own secrets. But if you can pass this test, if you can resist the urge to explain yourself to the world, if you can find satisfaction in your own growth without needing others to witness it, then you're ready to join the ranks of the truly powerful. The path forward. The path forward. The path forward is not easy. It requires you to unlearn everything you've been taught about success, about visibility, about the need to be seen and heard and understood. It requires you to become comfortable with being misunderstood, with being underestimated, with being overlooked. But here's what you gain in return. You gain the ability to move freely, to think clearly, to act decisively. You gain the power to surprise, to shock, to exceed expectations that were set too low because people didn't understand your true capabilities. You gain the ultimate freedom, the freedom to be who you are without needing permission from anyone else, the freedom to become who you want to be without explaining yourself to anyone else, the freedom to achieve what you want to achieve without seeking approval from anyone else. This is the gift that Machiavelli tried to give to anyone wise enough to receive it. The understanding that true power comes not from being seen, but from seeing, not from being understood, but from understanding, not from being heard, but from listening. The awakening call to action. If you've made it this far, something inside you has already shifted. You've felt the hunger for real power, the exhaustion with meaningless performance, the desire to become someone who doesn't need to announce their presence to command respect. You're tired of being predictable. You're tired of being available. You're tired of explaining yourself to people who would never understand the game you're really playing. So here's your moment of truth. Are you ready to stop being a performer and become a player? Are you ready to stop seeking attention and start commanding it? Are you ready to stop explaining yourself and start making yourself undeniable? If you are, if you're truly ready to embrace the power of strategic silence, then I want you to prove it. I want you to resist the urge to share this video with a long caption about how much it spoke to you. I want you to resist the urge to post about your new mindset on your story. I want you to resist the urge to explain to everyone how you're changing your approach to life. Instead, I want you to simply write 3 words in the comments. I move silently. No explanation, no story, no declaration of how this changed your life. Just those 3 words. This is your first test. This is your first opportunity to choose silence over noise, strategy over performance, power over popularity. Let's see who's ready to walk this path. Let's see who understands that the most powerful statement you can make is the one you don't make. Let's see who's ready to become dangerous in the best possible way. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to understand not just why silence is power, but how to wield it like a weapon in every area of your life, the next video will show you exactly that. It's not just theory, it's tactical. It's not just inspiration, it's instruction. It's not just motivation, it's methodology. The choice is yours. Stay loud and predictable, or become silent and unstoppable. Stay visible and vulnerable, or become strategic and invincible. I'll see you in the shadows, where the real power lives.